Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Yet another episode of Crushing Fantasy Football. I am Bryce Lockridge, your host of the show. Guys, today I'm going to be giving you my updated top 25 PPR rankings for the upcoming season of fantasy. Now, I just want to let you guys know before we get into today's video that my rankings are going to be different than most. They're not cookie cutter rankings, and that's because I refuse to copy and paste what we saw last year and just put everyone in the same order as how they finished last year. That's just not really a good way to do rankings because, as you know, if you've played fantasy football for long enough, things change drastically on a year-to-year basis. So I'm doing my best to predict what's going to happen and not just copying and pasting what we saw last year. So if you go over to most professional ranking platforms, their rankings are going to look different than mine, and I'm totally okay with that because I want to give you guys an edge in your league. And in order to give you an edge, we need to be ahead of the game. So I'm not going to be just copying and pasting last year's rankings. I'm going to be giving you my best assessment as to how these players are going to finish this coming season. So I'm going to start right here with the first player on my list, and that is Cooper Kupp. Now, Cooper Kupp was on another historic pace last season before he went down with his ankle injury. Obviously, the Rams were 3-7 when he endured his high ankle sprain, so they didn't really want to rush him back on the field. What was the point? It was more important to just get him healthy. So he went ahead and got surgery, so he's going to be 100% to start the year. Right, so I don't see why anybody would have any hesitation to draft him. On top of that, Matt Stafford is going to be 100% to start the year. Sean McVay is going to continue his aggressive approach in feeding Cooper Kupp and running the entire offense through Cooper Kupp. This guy's going to average 10-plus targets a game like he has in his past year and a half of dominance. If he's able to stay healthy and on the field this next season, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be the best player in fantasy yet again. He hasn't showed any signs of slowing down when he actually is on the field, and this dude has the best floor-ceiling combination of anybody in fantasy that I've literally ever seen. To me, he's the easy 101 this next season. Next player on my list is going to be Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is one of the safest bets in all of fantasy when it comes to, a first-round pick because we know that the entire offense in Minnesota is going to run through Justin Jefferson. It doesn't run through Dalvin Cook anymore the way it used to. Justin Jefferson is going to see a 30+% team target share. Yet again, this guy had 1,800-plus receiving yards last year. He's been absolutely dominant since coming into the league. We have a 3-year sample size. This dude is an absolute monster. Take him without hesitation. If you want to take him with the 101, I don't blame you. I'm taking Cooper Kupp, but man, Justin Jefferson is pretty awesome in his own right, and he's going to be fantasy dominance once again. Next player on my list is going to be Christian McCaffrey. So here's my first running back. I love Christian McCaffrey. He finished last season as the running back 2. This is a guy who is one of the most talented running backs in the NFL. He's playing in an offense that's going to provide him a lot of scoring opportunities. The touchdown upside is going to be there. The rushing volume is going to be there. He's going to receive a sick amount of targets out of the backfield. This dude very well has a chance to be the most heavily targeted running back out of the backfield in the entire NFL. He's a dual threat. He's dominant in every facet of the game, and he's got the best opportunity share coming his way of probably any running back in the entire NFL this coming season. So I would take him as a first running back off the board. Next player on my list is going to be Jamar Chase. Guys, Jamar Chase last season missed some time. He only played 12 out of the 17 games and was still second in the league in red zone targets. This is very impressive. I think he has a very good chance to lead the entire league in red zone targets this coming season. If he led the league in overall targets, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. This dude's an absolute target hog. His first season, he dominated on minimal target share. Then they decided, hey, we're going to start feeding Jamar Chase a lot more. And then we saw what he could do with an increased target share, and it was pretty awesome. This dude was a fantasy weapon, and if he gets to play a full healthy season, watch out. He definitely has a chance to be the wide receiver 1. Next player on my list is going to be Amon Ra Stevenson. Now, this is obviously quite a bit higher than most people are going to have Ramondre on their running back list. I have him as the running back 2 going into this season. I love Ramondre Stevenson's talent. I think he's one of the most talented running backs in the entire NFL. Bill Belichick is very high on Ramondre Stevenson. He's going to be by far and away the running back 1 in the offense. He's not going to have any competition for touches. He's one of the rare 3-down backs that we have left in the NFL. Those are less and less common nowadays. Ramondre Stevenson is a true 3-down back. He's going to see ridiculous rushing volume. The rushing efficiency will be there. We've seen how talented this guy is and how good he is at breaking tackles. This guy's going to receive a sick amount of targets out of the backfield. He's pretty much the new Alvin Kamara because he is going to receive he's going to have games where he literally sees more targets out of the backfield than he does carries. Okay, so he's the ultimate dual threat, and considering the opportunity share plus the talent, I am taking him as my second running back off the board. Next player on my list is going to be Tyreek Hill. Now, I wasn't big on Tyreek Hill going into last season. I actually didn't like the offensive change, but boy, was I wrong on this. He is awesome in the Dolphins offense. And so considering the fact that he's going to average close to 10 targets a game and he has the best big playability of any player in the entire league at any position and pretty much the highest weekly ceiling still at the wide receiver position of any wide receiver in the NFL. You're going to want to draft Tyreek Hill because this is the kind of guy that comes out and wins you week single-handedly and wins you league single-handedly. This dude's an absolute monster, and he should be taken as one of the first overall picks in fantasy. Next player on my list is going to be Kenneth Walker. I love Kenneth Walker, mainly due to, his talent is unbelievable, right? We watched this guy play in college. We watched him play in his first year in the NFL. This dude's ability to break big runs is it's like none other. He's one of the best big play running backs in the entire NFL. He's playing in a Seahawks offense that's far exceeded expectations this past season. Geno Smith has shown that he can actually lead a very efficient offense. This is going to give Kenneth Walker plenty of touchdown upside. And what I really like to see from Kenneth Walker is, as the season progressed, he really started to see a lot more targets out of the backfield. So, this myth that he can only run the ball and he's not going to see any sort of target share is actually just totally untrue. This guy started to have games where he was seeing 5 or 6 targets out of the backfield. So he has the potential to be a dual threat back this year and not just an elite runner. So I love Kenneth Walker this coming season. This guy should be a first-round pick. Next player on my list is going to be Stephon Diggs. Guys, I love Stephon Diggs. The Bills just kind of play playground ball. They just drop back and sling the ball downfield on like every other play. If you watch this offense, it's the closest thing to kids at recess I've ever seen, but they're all 6'5" and extremely talented. But, Stephon Diggs, right? He plays in an offense that's going to give him plenty of deep ball opportunities, plenty of touchdown upside, but the potential for 10-plus targets a game. This guy really dominates every major vital wide receiver opportunity share metric that you could possibly look at, and he's playing in an offense that has quite possibly the best quarterback in the NFL in Josh Allen to sling him the rock. So I love Stephon Diggs this coming season. He should be taken in the first round. Next player on my list is going to be Travis Ettienne. I am huge on Travis Ettienne this year because I love the Jacksonville offense. I truly think that the Jacksonville offense is going to be a top 5 scoring offense in the NFL. Now, obviously, they're going to be passing the ball a lot. They've got Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk. They're going to be slinging the rock. We got a third-year Trevor Lawrence, but all this is going to do is help the overall efficiency of the offense and give Travis Ettienne more opportunities to score touchdowns, not to mention we know how good of a pass-catching back he can be, so he's going to get a healthy amount of the target share himself. And we know that this dude's incredibly talented and incredibly efficient. He was one of the most efficient runners in the entire NFL last season. And he didn't really get going until, like week 5, week 6 last year because, he started slow because they wanted to kind of ease him into things. But guys, Travis Ettienne is going to explode this coming season. Next player on my list is going to be Saquon Barkley. What an awesome season for Saquon. He is well removed from his ACL injury, so we don't have to worry about any really lingering issues with that. This dude's incredibly talented. We know that, coming into the league, this was one of the most impressive running backs we've seen in the past decade. He's playing in a Giants offense that is pretty average, but they're not terrible, and they give him games where he sees 30-plus carries. He's one of the biggest volume hog running backs as far as overall carry count in the entire NFL, and he's a running back that could come out any given week and get you 6 or 7 targets out of the backfield. So I really love Saquon this season. And another thing that you have to look at last year, even though he had a great season, Daniel Jones had a ridiculous number of rushing touchdowns where they would run play fakes, in the red zone or within the 5-yard line, and Daniel Jones would come in and steal Saquon Barkley's touchdowns. You got to figure that's a little bit fluky and that Saquon should probably see some positive touchdown regression this coming season, I would think. It's not that he was terrible at getting in the end zone, but as volume heavy as he was, and as efficient as he was, you figure he would have scored even more touchdowns. So I think we have some positive touchdown regression coming for Saquon Barkley. Next player on my list is going to be Jonathan Taylor. Massive disappointment this past season. He dealt with an injury. The Colts offense was an absolute mess for a large majority of the season, but it is Jonathan Taylor. He's one of the most talented running backs in the entire league. I'm going to bank on the opportunity share and the talent because usually the combination of those things never disappoints unless a player gets injured. So I think we're going to see a huge bounce back year for Jonathan Taylor. Next player on my list is going to be Devontae Adams. This is, this is a receiver who he might be the most talented receiver in the league. I personally think that belongs to Tyreek Hill, but a lot of people think that Devontae Adams is the most talented wide receiver in the league. We're going to have to see, how the quarterback situation, ends up in Las Vegas. But Devontae Adams is going to be one of those guys that, no matter who's slinging him the rock, he's going to produce because he's just that kind of wide receiver. He literally is incapable of putting up a bad fantasy season. This guy is always a safe bet with a great floor-ceiling combination. Next player on my list is going to be Travis Kelce. Now, most people are taking Travis Kelce in the first round. I actually made a video yesterday talking about how I think you should fade Travis Kelce in the first round because I really just don't like taking a tight end in the first round because it kind of messes up the rest of your draft. But this is the most dominant fantasy tight end that we've ever seen. So if you take him in the first round, I guess I'm not all that mad at you. If he somehow slips to the early part of the second round and you were able to take a running back or a wide receiver with your first pick and Travis Kelce with your second pick, you should jump all over that because that's a little bit different of a situation. But I'm not going to be reaching for Travis Kelce in the first round personally, so that's why I have him just outside of my top 12. Next player on my list is going to be Tony Pollard. Now, Tony Pollard would be absolutely in my top 12 overall players in fantasy if he did not suffer the broken leg bone in the playoffs. So he's coming back from a pretty severe injury, but it's not a torn ACL. It's an injury where he can be 100% to start the season. We're going to obviously have to monitor his progress, but I think that Tony Pollard can still come back at 100%, and we know how ridiculously talented this guy is. He's going to be playing in a fast-paced, high-scoring offense. It gives him plenty of touchdown upside, so I love him this coming season. I think in the middle of the second round, or even the beginning of the second round, he's a good pick for your fantasy team. Know that there's a slight injury risk because, he is coming back from a pretty major break, but again, it's not a torn ACL, so I'm not going to let it scare me away. Next player on my list is going to be Austin Ekeler. Now, Austin Ekeler is way lower on my list than most people have him in their rankings, and that's because people are just copying last season. Look, Keenan Allen spent a significant amount of time injured last season. Mike Williams spent a significant amount of time injured last season. Justin Herbert wasn't running the ball as much because, he had the rib fracture. So the Chargers were all banged up. So naturally, all the opportunity share went to Austin Ekeler. And we've seen this guy score a ridiculous amount of touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. I mean, most people would say that's a good thing, but I'm going to tell you this right now. There is no way that if the Chargers offense stays healthy, that Austin Ekeler will score that many touchdowns again. It's just not going to happen. He was getting in the end zone so much because a lot of the opportunity share opened up because the volume hog in the red zone wide receiver and Keenan Allen wasn't on the team. He was injured for a majority of the season. Mike Williams was injured for a lot of the season. They weren't running Justin Herbert. So because of all these things, Austin Ekeler scored a lot more touchdowns than he probably should have. And he also saw more targets out of the backfield than he probably should have. So I think we're going to see target share negative regression for Austin Ekeler this coming season. I think we're also going to see some serious touchdown regression for Austin Ekeler. Now, is he worth the pick in the second round? Absolutely, because he's still going to be one of the better running backs in fantasy. But I don't want to draft him in the first round because I think his numbers last year were a little inflated due to all the injuries. Next player on my list is going to be CeeDee Lamb. Now, CeeDee Lamb is a player who he's the best wide receiver in a very high-scoring offense. He is my last Tier 1 wide receiver before I have a tier break and go on to the Tier 2 wide receivers for fantasy. So he's still a Tier 1 wide receiver, and I love him in the Dallas offense. I think that he's going to explode and have another monster season. He was the wide receiver 5 last year. Look for him to repeat a pretty similar performance this year. I even think he has a chance to potentially maybe even do a little bit better. Next player on my list is going to be Amon Ra St. Brown. I love Amon Ra St. Brown. I've been talking about him in almost every video I've made lately because I'm big on him this coming season. He's going to have a great opportunity share in his offense. They're going to feed him the ball like crazy. And he's going to be one of those receivers that averages close to 10 targets a game. We know he has great big play ability. He is one of the most talented wide receivers in this league. The entire offense in Detroit is going to run through Amon Ra St. Brown. Obviously they have a pretty decent running game as well, but Amon Ra St. Brown is the main weapon in the offense, and he's going to benefit from this. Next player on my list is going to be Nick Chubb. Now, Nick Chubb is one of the safest picks in all of fantasy because he's arguably the most talented running back in the entire NFL, especially just from a pure running standpoint, and he's running behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So he's going to come out every week and rush for 100 yards pretty much almost every single week. So he's a sure thing in that element, but we got to figure that they're going to be passing a little bit more with Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Watson is going to siphon at least some of Nick Chubb's rushing touchdowns because Deshaun Watson is a good rushing quarterback. So maybe some slight touchdown regression for Nick Chubb, but nothing major. And I still expect him to be a very good fantasy running back. He's just not quite good enough to be a first-round pick for me. Next player on my list is going to be Derrick Henry. Now, this guy is, he's old, right? The dude is, getting close to being 30 years old. I mean, he's going to be 29 this year, and he's just way over the carry count that you want for a running back, right? He's over, 1,700 career carries. This is a lot, but he has immense talent. And, A running back this good, until I actually see him fall off, it's kind of hard for me to fade him just because of his age. I think that he's still going to be a very good second-round pick this coming season in fantasy. Next player on my list is going to be Chris Olave. Guys, Chris Olave is going to be way higher in my rankings than I have most. I love Derek Carr slinging him the rock. This dude had a 40% air yard share in his offense last season. So he is just – he's a money play. I really think that you can get him at an awesome value, and I think that he's going to be one of the better wide receivers in fantasy this coming season. Next player on my list is going to be A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown was awesome last season. Off the top of my head, I think he finishes the wide receiver 8. The dude was incredible. He has a great floor-ceiling combination, and he really didn't have a whole lot of bust weeks. He had a few of them, but he was pretty consistent for the most part as far as the floor, and he demonstrated a monstrously high ceiling. He has weeks where he comes out and gets you a couple touchdowns and 150 receiving yards and 10 receptions, and he's going to have games like this coming season as well. This Philadelphia offense is very good. Next player on my list is going to be Jalen Waddle. I love Jalen Waddle's speed. I love Jalen Waddle's talent. I love Jalen Waddle's role in his offense. This guy has the ability to win a week for you. He has not quite Tyreek Hill's ceiling, but pretty close. And, we're obviously going to have to keep an eye on Tua and whether or not he's able to stay on the field, because obviously that's going to affect Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle quite a bit. But, I think that both of these wide receivers are going to absolutely explode this coming season. They have immense talent, and due to their speed, they have tremendous big playability. And I love big playability in wide receivers because it ends up winning you weeks. So I love Jalen Waddle this year. Next player on my list is going to be Amari Cooper. There is not going to be any other fantasy content creator or any other platform that makes rankings that has Amari Cooper in their top 25. And I have no idea why. It doesn't make sense to me. This is a guy who is slept on every year. He comes out every year and just absolutely dominates. And now he's going to be playing with, by far and away, the best quarterback that he's ever had. And don't sit here and try to tell me that Dak Prescott is as good as Deshaun Watson, because I'm not going to entertain that argument. This is the best wide receiver. This is the best quarterback that Amari Cooper has ever had in his career by a long shot. Okay, so you got to figure that outperforming expectations last year when the quarterback situation in Cleveland wasn't really very good. Now we have Deshaun Watson to sling Amari Cooper the ball. Look for Amari Cooper to absolutely explode with Deshaun Watson as his quarterback. And if he was a top 8 wide receiver in fantasy, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Next player on my list is going to be Keenan Allen. Now, this guy spent a significant amount of time injured last year, and that is the only reason why he has slipped in rankings. And this is all just recency bias, guys. Keenan Allen is one of the most reliable wide receivers in all of fantasy because he's going to get close to 10 targets a game. He plays in an ultra high-scoring offense that's going to provide him a ton of touchdown opportunities, and he gets peppered with targets in the red zone. Look for this dude to absolutely explode this coming season, and look for the Chargers to really bounce back and be one of the best offenses in the entire NFL as long as they can stay healthy. Next, and final player on my list is going to be Dameon Pierce. I love Dameon Pierce because of the opportunity share. That's really all it comes down to on this. This is a guy who is a true 3-down back, and there's just not a lot of those left in the NFL. This guy is going to be receiving 20-plus carries in most games, and due to the ridiculous amount of volume he's going to receive, I like Dameon Pierce a lot. We're obviously, before he becomes like a first-round pick or anything like that, we're going to need to see the offense improve significantly in Houston or him go to another offense altogether, and we're also going to need to see him start to see more passing work. So, I have him in my top 25 just out of my first 2 rounds of the draft, assuming we're playing in 12-man leagues. But this dude's going to have an awesome season due to the ridiculous amount of volume and the fact that he's one of the only true 3-down backs really that we have in the NFL still. So I like Dameon Pierce this coming season. So that's going to be it, guys. I like Dameon Pierce as my last player on this list. All these players right here, I have very good reason to believe are going to have awesome seasons this coming year in fantasy. And I just wanted to give you a breakdown as to what my rankings look like and, why I have every player exactly where I have them. So I appreciate you guys tuning into the video, and I will catch you later.